So the best place to go is the BlenderBIM website, and you click Get the Add-on here, and there's some installation instructions. You download the one for your operating system, and you install it just like any other add-on for Blender. There's nothing special about it. It works for any version of Blender 2.8 and above. So I'm currently on 2.82, but 2.83 has been released. You go into the Preferences folder, you click Install, you browse to the BlenderBIM download. You do not need to unzip the file, and you click Install Add-on. Once you've clicked Install Add-on, you'll find the BlenderBIM add-on here, which you just press this checkbox to enable it, and it's installed. You can press Remove at any time to remove it. Now, once it's installed, you'll find all of the options in a variety of these panels. The main one you're going to be working with is the scene properties, the object properties, sometimes the mesh or the material properties, and if you're doing documentation, the output properties, where you'll find documentation related features. Now, because the development of the BlenderBIM add-on changes so fast, it's worthwhile knowing how to get the latest version. So if you're familiar with Git, the main repository is the IFC Open Shell repo. And if you clone or download this repository, if you have Git, you can clone it. And if you don't, you can just click Download Zip over here. And anytime you click that button, you'll get the latest version of the repository. And the code for the BlenderBIM add-on is in the source IFC Blender export folder, and then BlenderBIM. And everything is in here. I know it says IFC Blender export, but this includes code for the importer as well. I should probably rename it. So where it's stored is depending on your operating system. So if you're on Linux like me, your Blender add-ons folder is in the config folder, Blender 2.82 scripts add-ons. But if you're on Windows, this will be something like C users, your name, app data, roaming, Blender Foundation, I think 2.82, and 2.82 will change depending on version number. It could be 2.83, for example, scripts add-ons. And on Mac, I'm not entirely sure where it is, but Google will tell you that. So once you're in there, you can see that it has one folder for every single add-on you've installed. I've got 2 add-ons installed right now, BlenderBIM and Measure It Arch. So inside the BlenderBIM folder, you can see that it has 2 folders and 1 file. It has a BIM folder, a libs folder, and an init.py. And you can see that it's got exactly the same folders in here. Now, you don't need to touch the init.py if you want to upgrade to the latest version of Blender before there's a release. BlenderBIM. The libs folder contains all of the various dependencies of the BlenderBIM add-on. So the BlenderBIM add-on relies on various C++ and Python libraries in order to do a lot of the heavy work. So one of those is IFC OpenShell, and that's the main one. So if you go in here, you'll find a whole bunch of files, and you generally don't need to touch them. They just sit there, and the add-on is now relatively stable that these don't change that much. Once in a while, they will change, but most of the time you can ignore them. So if you want to update to the latest version from the Git repository, the folder you want to look in is the BIM folder. And if I open the BIM folder here, you can see that all these files and all these files correlate. So if you've downloaded the latest version from the Git repository, just copy these files and overwrite your files in your BlenderBIM add-on. Just overwrite all of them. It doesn't really matter. And you'll get the latest version of the BlenderBIM add-on. And I hope that makes sense. And one way to check whether you have done so, 0.999999, that's 6 nines over there. And so if you've reported a bug, for example, on the issue tracker and I fixed it, that's one of the ways you can get the changes.